All right, so you want to know about breaking bad habits. Let's dive in. You sent in this article, 15 ways to hack your brain to break bad habits. Seems like you're ready for a change, huh?
Absolutely. And this article, it's not just about wishing your bad habits away. It's about understanding how your brain actually works, the science behind those habits.
Yeah, it really emphasizes that, like, knowing your brain is the key to making changes that stick, right? Not just willpower, but actually working with how our brains are wired.
Exactly. So many people struggle with habits thinking it's their fault they can't just quit. But this article dives into the why, the how habits form, which is like step one to figuring out how to break them.
For sure. And it starts off with this point that kind of blew my mind, that there are actually ideal times to, like, influence our brains for change.
Yeah.
Apparently, right before sleep and after waking up are prime time for habit hacking.
It's all about those brainwaves, man. Like as you drift off to sleep, your brainwaves shift, right? From those super active beta waves down to the slower alpha, theta, and then finally delta waves of deep sleep.
So it's like our brains are shifting gears, going
Yeah.
from like go, go, go to this like kind of dreamy, almost hypnotic state.
Exactly. And in those moments, those transition times, your subconscious is way more open to suggestion. So if you're trying to make a change, reinforce a new positive habit, that's the time to plant those seeds.
So instead of scrolling through social media before bed, which, okay, guilty, that's when I should be visualizing myself like crushing my goals.
Yeah, you got it. It's like giving your subconscious a set of instructions before it clocks out for the night.
Okay, that's a game changer.
Yeah.
But then the article throws us a curveball. It says making mistakes, actually a good thing when breaking habits. That feels so counterintuitive.
It does, right. But think of it like this. Every time you mess up, your brain is basically creating a detour on a road it's used to, those errors. They force your brain to find a new route, to rewire itself in the process.
Oh, so it's like learning a new language. You're expected to stumble over words, make grammar mistakes at first. Those mistakes are part of the learning process, right?
Exactly. And each mistake brings you one step closer to fluency in that new language, or in this case, a new, healthier habit.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Now, this next part really stood out to me because it's all about emotions. The article highlights emotional priming, mentally rehearsing success, and avoiding negativity. It's amazing how much our feelings play into all this, you
Oh,
know?
they're huge. We underestimate how much our emotions drive our actions.
Yeah.
Think about it. How many times have you just, grabbed a bag of chips or cookies when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed?
Oh, way too often. Like my brain just goes on autopilot to the pantry.
Right. Because when we do those comforting, familiar things, even if they're not the healthiest, our brains release those feel-good chemicals like dopamine. And that reinforces the cycle. So emotional priming. It's about intentionally rewiring those associations in our brains.
So instead of chips bringing that comfort, I need to connect those good feelings to like a healthier choice. Like imagine craving a smoothie after a workout because I've linked it to that feeling of, yes, I did it, accomplishment.
Exactly. It's like training your brain to crave the salad instead of the chips.
Now that's a craving I can get behind.
Yeah.
But what about mentally rehearsing success? Is that like making a mental movie where I'm like conquering a craving and choosing the healthy option?
Exactly. Visualize yourself successfully navigating those situations that usually trigger your bad habits. By mentally rehearsing, you're creating a neural blueprint for success. Your brain's like, okay, I've been here before. I know the drill.
And avoiding negativity is part of this too, right? But it's not just about positive thinking, right? More like shifting our focus.
Exactly. Not denying the challenges or pretending those bad habits don't exist. It's about consciously choosing to focus on the positive outcomes of change, instead of dwelling on those past slip-ups.
So we've talked about like the mental and emotional side of breaking habits. But this article, it also dives into some practical strategies, starting with routines.
Yeah, routine.
It seems like they can be both the problem and the solution when it comes to bad habits.
It's all about those triggers. Our routines, they often have these hidden triggers that just set off a bad habit without us even realizing it. Think about it. You're driving home from work, stressed from the day, and boom, you reach for that bag of chips because it's like clockwork, right? The routine itself becomes the trigger.
Yeah, my brain's on autopilot, just going through the motions.
Exactly. But here's the good news. We can use that same autopilot to our advantage. We create new routines that support our goals, and it's like we're rewiring our brains to choose those healthier options instead.
So instead of chips after work, maybe I try going for a walk or listening to a podcast. Switching up the routine to Like, break that autopilot.
Exactly. You're replacing that automatic, unconscious trigger with something new, something that aligns with your goals. It's like you're laying down a new path for your brain to follow.
Okay, I like that visual, laying down a new path.
Yeah.
This is starting to feel like less overwhelming, more like I can actually make some changes stick.
Mhm.
But then the article, it dives into some techniques that feel a little more, I don't know, like mastering my own like inner world. Like it
Right.
talks about identifying and shortening emotional reactions.
Yeah, that's where the really cool neuroscience comes in. Yeah. When we experience a strong negative emotion, our brains basically take a snapshot of that moment. They link those feelings to whatever's happening. And the longer we stay stuck in that negativity, the stronger those connections get.
So it's like my brain creates a shortcut. Like next time this feeling comes up and reach for the bad habit.
You got it. And that shortcut, it usually leads right back to the same old habits. Shortening our emotional reactions is about interrupting that pattern, acknowledging the feeling but not letting it control us.
Makes sense. But how do we actually reprogram our brains, so to speak, to find healthy choices rewarding? It feels like I'm like fighting against how my brain is wired sometimes.
Well, you're right. Our brains are kind of hardwired to seek pleasure, those rewards, especially stuff linked to survival, like calorie-rich food, right? That's
Mm.
why breaking, say, food-related habits can be tougher. But we can actually kind of like outsmart our brains a bit by consciously associating those rewards with healthier choices.
Okay, so instead of rewarding myself with like a big bowl of ice cream, I could go for a walk in nature maybe,
Yeah,
or curl up with a good book. Things I enjoy, but that are also more in line with my goals.
there you go. You're teaching your brain that those healthy choices, they can be just as rewarding, if not more so, than those old habits.
Like retraining my brain to crave a different kind of reward.
Mm.
This is fascinating.
Yeah.
The article doesn't even stop there. It mentions even more strategies like cultivating curiosity, accepting fear, starting each day in the present moment. These seem less about specific actions, more about like mindset.
They are, and they're super powerful. Cultivating curiosity, it's about approaching your actions with this like open, curious mind instead of beating yourself up. So like instead of, I messed up again, it's, I wonder what was happening right before I felt that urge. What need was I trying to meet?
Yeah, like almost being like a scientist, observing your own behavior, but without judging it.
Exactly. But it's not just about understanding why we do what we do. It's also about like accepting the fear that comes up with change. Our brains, they crave that predictability. So breaking a habit, it's like stepping outside that comfort zone can be kind of scary.
So it's normal to feel some resistance when you're trying to change, even if you really want to.
Oh, yeah, totally normal. It's a good sign, actually. It means you're challenging yourself, pushing those boundaries. But don't let that fear stop you, right? Remember the unknown. Not as scary as our brains make it seem.
Okay, so curiosity, accepting fear. Got it. What about this whole like starting each day in the present moment thing?
Ah, that's a big one. It's about breaking that cycle of like dwelling on the past, especially when those past experiences are tied to our bad habits. How many people wake up and they're instantly replaying yesterday's stress, right? Yeah. All those setbacks. And that just sets us up for more of the same. So starting the day focused on the present, it can disrupt those negative associations.
So instead of like waking up and immediately stressing about yesterday's to-do list, I should focus on, I don't know, just actually getting out of bed and making my coffee.
Exactly. Grounding yourself in those simple actions, it's like hitting the reset button on your brain.
Love that visual. Okay, this deep dive, it's been amazing, truly. But I got to be honest, I'm feeling a little like overwhelmed by all these strategies. Is there like a shortcut to all of this? Asking for a friend.
Well, that's where our final point comes in, right? The article, it talks about meditation and mindfulness. They can be real game changers when it comes to breaking those bad habits.
Meditation, mindfulness.
Yeah.
This isn't getting a little too woo-woo, even for me.
I hear ya, but trust me on this. This stuff has real science behind it. It's not about, chanting on a mountaintop. It's about training your brain to be more aware, more present with your thoughts and impulses, those urges.
So instead of being ruled by those cravings, those automatic reactions, you learn to just observe them
hmm
without judgment.
Exactly. And that's where the magic happens. With mindfulness, you create space between the urge and the action. You're not on autopilot anymore, not blindly following those old patterns.
It's like you're giving your brain a superpower.
Yeah.
I love that. This has been such an insightful deep dive, and I gotta say, I'm feeling way more optimistic about breaking my own bad habits.
That's awesome. And remember, you don't have to do everything at once. Start small, pick one strategy that really resonates, and build from there.
I think our listener mentioned they're trying to, like, break the habit of late-night snacking.
Mm-hmm.
So based on all this brain-hacking wisdom, what's one actionable thing they could try tonight?
You know what? I think that emotional priming could be huge for them. Before bed tonight, have them spend a few minutes visualizing, how good it feels to wake up feeling energized, in control of their choices. Really tap into those positive feelings.
So they're basically rewiring their brain to crave that feeling of success instead of that late-night snack.
I love it. Exactly. And the more they practice, the stronger that association becomes. Makes it way easier to resist those cravings.
Like we always say, knowledge is power, but only when we actually put it into action, right?
100%. So listeners, take what you've learned today, choose one strategy, one small change, and get started.
Hey, if you stumble along the way, no worries. Remember, those mistakes, they're just your brain making new connections, finding a new path.
Embrace the journey and never underestimate just how powerful your brain really is.
And on that note, my friends, that's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.